If we go to the tape, okay, so this is the first thing that we need to talk about, and I think I have this a play early, but you see Quay Walker is going to walk in. We've got two over the slot. So if you look down at the bottom of the screen, we got a 3-by-2 empty formation, and this is just stuff as you watch tape for fans out there or anybody who want to picks this stuff up. The most obvious, if you're going to say to me, who's the most obvious person that's going to come in this situation? If anybody's coming on an empty blitz, who's coming right now? And you would say, well, you'd say the person over the slot receiver on the bottom two side of the formation, because the safety's down. In other words, he can't run a hot route. If they came up from the slot on the 3-by-2 on the 3 side, from there you see that basically that inside slot receiver's got, I don't know, 20 yards of space between him and Darnell. I think it's Darnell Savage, but Quay Walker's got a little bit less space. So I don't know against, for me, if you go empty and you bring 5, the risk, you have to figure out what the risk reward is for you, because as we play this clip, look how much space everybody has. I mean, really, except for the inside slot receiver, who's playing in a situation where you can't throw the ball whenever you want? And really, as I look at this, obviously you're going to see Rasul Douglas down here on the bottom of the screen, and he's opening up, and you're not going to throw a hitch right now. You see the same thing at the top of the screen as well. But everybody else, I mean, you got a lot of space to operate here. There's 2 people to throw to. And I just don't know how much sense. It's just one of those observations. I don't know how much sense that makes. Now, I want everybody to start looking at the tips and tendencies. Okay, so we got Preston Smith. The first thing is Preston. Now that Rashawn Gary's not here, Preston has played in the preseason, at least, as a left outside linebacker, or left defensive end, or whatever you want to call it. He usually is on the right side. He's now on the left side. Are we doing that because we think he is the best pass rush option now against arguably, usually, except for maybe the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the worst pass blocking tackle? Like, usually the left tackle is the better pass blocker, at least historically. TJ Watt, all these guys are making a lot of money over there rushing against the right tackle now. Michael Strahan starting the trend, I think. But Van Ness is over on the other side. We've talked about this. Being up in a 2-point stance, I don't think is the best thing for him. Here's something that's very interesting. This has not only happened with the Green Bay Packers, it happens with the Seattle Seahawks and a number of other teams. You look at their stances, inside foot up. Van Ness is kind of tipping this a little early with not only where he's lined up as far as in relationship to the left tackle, but also the way he's tilted in. He's probably going to come inside here. And then we see Kenny Clark's coming off the right guard here, and they're going to work off this double, comes backside. Van Ness slips inside. Quay does a good job of spilling on this play. Again, here's what I want. When I say he does a good job, this is what we want to see from Quay Walker right here. Quay needs to come down and pop this fullback in the mouth. Okay? That's just not how you take on a fullback. You have to stand your ground right there. You want to condense that space as much as possible. And when he plays 2 hands and gets pushed off the ball, this is what we saw last year. Something that we hopefully see some improvement of as time goes on. But something that is a huge area of opportunity because it affects this defense. Kenny Clark gets in though. Nice play by Van Ness. It's a scripted play. It's not like he's deciding he's going to go inside all of a sudden. But it's as you continue to watch this as a fan, when you see inside foot up and you see them this close to the tackle, expect that they're going to go inside until they show you differently. Get the scrape. And then obviously you see Kenny making his presence felt as soon as he gets on the field. Here's another Kenny Clark play, I believe. Goes backside here. And this is a play where you're looking to nickel. And he immediately sees, he's got that left foot pointed. You look at the stance, he's going outside. Enagbari is not in any position to rush. So he has contained, and this kind of just works out, right? Plays like this just sometimes work out. Really brave move by the tight end. Jeez, oh, Pete's. Okay, now we've seen the 3-by-1 for the rush side. So you got Preston, okay, and I think we got Wooden there, and then Kenny Clark. And then on the other side, we have a defensive end who's just off the screen, and then Quay. So Quay's going to occupy that left guard, and they're going to be able to run a kind of a TE or a linebacker end game there. But you've got this 3-man game, so you got the 3-to-1 side, and there's so many things they can do here, right? They can run a TE with the inside penetrator and then the 3 technique coming around, or the 4 technique or 5 technique, I guess in this case. You can run a TE with the 5 technique in Preston Smith. You can run a double tackle end all the way around game, and then you can run like a crazy twist here as well, where the ends actually go underneath one another, like they did all at Tampa back in the day. This is kind of a new wrinkle when you watch this rush. The red arrow is going to go first, and then we're running the TT, but we're really running it like almost like an ET game with the tackle going out. So the center and the guard are having to deal with this ET game, and it looks good. It's tough to block. You see here, because Preston's coming, this tackle can only hang for so long. And now I think that's Wyatt. Or maybe that's Wyatt and I wouldn't, but we can occupy that space. It is Wyatt, excuse me. And now, I mean, that's just a natural pick play. And this is when you see plays like this, really, it's just a question of how is the quarterback going to throw the ball? Because 19 times out of 20, you're gonna win on this play. Don't really care about the end of this Isaiah McDuffie making a tackle. I love Isaiah McDuffie, man. Oh, here he is again. Go figure. Okay, so he gets called for a penalty here, but this is how you play the linebacker position. Head on a swivel, sees this guy coming across. Now, within 5 yards, you can knock that guy's block off. Okay, and so what he should have done here, I think if he could do this again, he would just take a shot on this receiver coming across the underneath here on the double crosser. He could take a shot on him and just knock his block off right there, and then this play is moot, right? The throw nothing matters. But because he drags with him a little bit, takes him down, they end up getting the penalty. But I just like the awareness. Obviously, I'm trying to. You could build off this play, but you like the instincts. You like the way his head's on a swivel. He knows where he's going. You can be a little more. You can make a decision if you're within that 5 yards to be a little more physical, but you certainly can't hold on to him. Do like the play though. Okay, what we've done in the preseason, more so than I don't know, maybe I'm comfortable with. And this is, start talking about Joe Barry. I want you to make more, I want you to take more chances. I want you to be more aggressive on defense. I want you to bring the linebackers more. When you start moving, and this is the second unit for the Seattle Seahawks, okay? But it is what it is. They're a good football team. When you start moving your defensive linemen so their chests are facing the sideline, okay? It's literally a light switch play. It's a feast or famine. It's a yes or no, okay? If it works, great, because you beat a gap. The offensive lineman looking disheveled out of position. Usually the linebacker or that defensive tackle or defensive end comes free. If they start moving and they get caught, in other words, if they can't get to their gap. So in the case of Hollins right here, if he can't get to the B gap now, you have a real problem. Okay, so you see everybody gets cut off. All their chests are pointed towards the line of scrimmage. This is just a middle zone play. The linebackers are really flowing hard. And because of that, you have this huge hole right up the gut, and they get 5+ yards. Okay, this is an easy run. Maybe it's almost 10 yards. Now you look at the same thing here. You got square stances by both your defensive tackles, which tips the offensive line that they're going to be stepping out or stepping away, right? In other words, if I was penetrating, I'd have one foot, I'd have a slight stagger. If I was going to press and read, I'd have a slight stagger. When I square up, that tells me a story, especially that 3 technique position, okay? Because we're in nickel now, remember. We're not playing that traditional, that 52, that 34 looking base defense. So that the Seattle Seahawks line now can make a call. You just understand our jobs are to make sure, especially if we're down blocking here, that these guys don't get to their gaps. Because if they don't get to their gaps, as they don't here, you see the right guard does a phenomenal job of absolutely. I mean, he warhammers Jonathan Ford. I mean, absolutely destroys him. And now, all of a sudden, you get this huge hole down the middle. Okay, and this is just a consequence of really. This is what happens when you take chances on defense. Like, in other words, if you have the Philadelphia Eagles defensive line, you're not, because they're all really, really good, you're not going to spend a ton of time trying to slant and be tricky. And, this is what the St. Louis Rams used to do when they had a really, really good offense and some very good players on defense, but not, I think they're not necessarily up to standard like when they played against us. And what they'd start doing is moving around a lot. And sometimes they get you, but if they didn't, and you could make a call, or you got them, Tampa did this too. Man, there's just a lot of space to eat out there for the running back. Don't like to see this, obviously. But that's what happens. You try to, you guys want more aggressive defense. Some of this stuff's going to happen. That's inevitable. This is interesting, right? So they're all bunched in. Now, what is the Sean McVay school of thought taught all of us? Well, if everybody's bunched in, they're still going to fight for every blade of grass. So what do? We bring everybody to go down to the bottom of the screen towards the right, and then we're going to single up this bottom receiver whose defensive back is giving him, right, playing him outside in. He has outside leverage, but he doesn't have, so he can run. If we're just going to have a race to the yellow dot, the sun, right, the I think that's Curse is going to win this, 19 times out of 20, because DB's got outside leverage. We've got a lot of motion you're going to get jumbled up on a lot of crossers, guys, linebackers, and kind of you're going to get mixed up in the wash, and you're playing single safety here, and everyone's a type formation. So you don't have a lot of speed. You don't have a lot of margin for error. And you see what happens. They just run a double crosser. Good throw, good catch. It's just a good play, right? It's just something to learn from. But when you're in those situations, as you're watching the stuff at home, like if they're condensed down like that, like they still want to use the entire field. So you start thinking, if I'm a player, you start thinking, okay, what am I giving up here? What are the real issues? A lot to think about, and it happens really fast. Let's look at some offensive stuff. I think when you take away from the defense, and to start with that, everything starts with that line, and everything with that line starts with Kenny Clark. Kenny Clark's still the top player on this team. If we're looking at the box players, had an immediate impact. I think he'll have immediate impact when you get to week 1. You see Rashawn Gary's coming back and playing a little bit in practice. You got to be excited about that. I still think that defensive line is, we're still looking to see if Wyatt's going to be the guy. Well, I think TJ Slaton's going to start, but is Wyatt going to be that pass rushing specialist or pass rushing guy that we can really lean on? Can we lean Colby Wooden? Excuse me. I like what Slaton's done, but is he? He's not going to eat up and command double teams. I think like you really want. He's not going to. He's not. He might push the pocket. I think he's a really good replacement for Dean Lowry, but it would just be nice to have that second guy. I remember we used to play against Warren Sapp, and Warren Sapp would, if we doubled Warren Sapp, Warren would say, like, he would get furious, and he'd say, like, you just wait till my guy gets here. You just wait till my guy gets here. Well, the problem was he never got a guy. Like I forgot the guy that he had when he first got there, and he retired. They drafted Booger McFarland from LSU, and he was never, like, Booger was a good player, but he was never like a pass rusher that we were circling on the, on our player reports going, like, we really got to worry about him as a pass rusher. So you just never had that guy, right? You had Simony on the outside, but if they were on the same side, you just slide. There's just different things you could do. And you need to have two guys on the interior line that's like, if you single one of us up, we're at least going to get into the feet of the quarterback, right? We're at least going to get to the feet of the quarterback. If you can do that, you just have a lot of freedom, because pressure equals picks, 1. And 2, when you think about the geometry of the pocket and you think about the defensive end trying to run the loop more often than most of these guys are taught to run the loop, right? Like we can get into pass rush some other time, but most of these guys end up running the loop more often than not. They don't end up bull rushing like they probably should. The running the loop doesn't matter, especially in the shotgun new offense with the new geometry of the new pocket and the depth that the quarterbacks play at. It really doesn't matter unless you have guys that are getting 7-8 yards deep on bull rush. I mean, that's the only reason, because then they can't really step up at all. Any other situation, and you got to think about it, like even getting 5 yards of bull rush against offensive linemen is a lot. You have to have guys that can get 7, 8, 9 yards, really push that pocket, because when the quarterback's back foot hits at 11 and takes a step forward on a 5-step drop, you're stepping forward and trying to plant throw at 9. If you're not at 7 or 8 yards, nobody cares. And so now that defensive end that's making that deep rush, they're never going to get there unless that tackle really, really makes a mistake. So nice to find that guy. Is it going to be Slaton? Is it going to be Wooden? Is it going to be Wyatt? Is it going to be a combination? I don't know. It would be nice. It would have been nice to see a little bit more out of White, I think, from a pass rush standpoint going into this season.